Hello, I'm Dina Mansour, Executive Director of the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center here at the University of Montana. Welcome to our Pandemic Dialogues in tandem with the 2021 Mansfield Lecture featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci. Today's focus is a critical issue for our community, the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 on Native American communities. This event is being recorded by Missoula Community Access Television as part of its media assistance grants and is available for future viewing, both at the Mansfield Center website, on our Facebook page, and will be broadcast by MCAT in the future. The Mansfield Center was endowed by an act of Congress in 1983 to carry forward Mike Mansfield's legacy of statesmanship, ethics, and civility in public affairs. The center's mission is to foster a national dialogue of respect and civility to restore trust in our national institutions, our founding documents, and our public policymakers. Our dialogues are designed to foster civil exchanges of ideas from diverse viewpoints, to reinforce the importance of democratic institutions, and to examine the role that ethical values play in public life. We hope that today's discussion truly meets the definition of dialogue as you join in the conversation through the Q&A box. So we encourage you to post your comments and your questions throughout, and we will have a specific segment at the end of this discussion where your questions are posed by the moderator. So I'd like to start by introducing our moderator today. Dr. Cora Newman is a public health expert and recently founded We Are Montana to support public health leadership across rural and Native Montana. Over the past 20 years, she has collaborated with local and national leaders, including First Ladies in the United States and worldwide, to bring quality, accessible healthcare to their communities, including during the current COVID outbreak. She most recently ran for U.S. Senate in her home state of Montana and serves on the boards of the Columbia University School of Public Health and Haven, and is a member of COVID Local and the Montana Public Health Association. Cora grew up and is based in Bozeman, surrounded by 4 generations of family, from her grandmother to her 2 teenage children. Cora, thank you so much for moderating the discussion today.
Thank you so much, Dina, and to the Mansfield Center for hosting this really wonderful set of dialogues related to COVID response in Montana. Last week's was wonderful. We're happy to be following that one up and looking forward to the next 2, including one with Dr. Fauci on the 17th. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you for having me. I just want to start this conversation grounding us in where we are with COVID. As the country and state shifts to vaccine response, we're very happy to have that light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccine rollout is critical here in the state. I serve on the state task force on vaccine rollout, and we're working hard to make sure that vaccines reach all of our communities as quickly as possible. But I just want to remind everyone that we are really still in the middle of this pandemic. It is continuing to have a really real impact on the life of Montanans. Just today, we have 437 new cases. We've surpassed 1,300 deaths. We have 1,303 deaths, which is an increase of 54 since yesterday. That's 54 people. That's 54 families that are in mourning. And so I think it's really important that we continue to come back and regularly center on where we are as a community, as a state, as a country. We have rolled out 116,000 vaccine doses and 30,000 people are fully immunized. So we're on our way, but just want to give a moment of, reflection and just sending thoughts out to those families that are dealing with that loss right now. COVID is still here. We must continue to practice safety guidelines, including wearing a mask, watching your distance, washing your hands. It is still important until everyone is vaccinated and we're through this. I know that it's been tiring and it's been hard, but I just want to kick the hour off, reminding us really where we are in real time with COVID here in Montana. My organization, We Are Montana, has been working across the state on COVID response and working closely with Indigenous communities. I worked on the Ebola response in Western Africa, and one of the things that we learned there was the absolute critical importance of engaging leaders at all levels and from all nations in response. Montana leaders here, Indigenous leaders, have stayed ahead of the curve. And I'm really excited about the focus of this panel, which is on Indigenous leadership. Indigenous communities here have been impacted disproportionately have had much higher percentages of loss than our non-Indigenous communities. And that can be something that I think, media outlets and news focuses on the loss. And I'm really proud to be here helping support and highlight the leadership that we've seen, because the loss in these communities is not for lack of leadership. We have really incredible leadership across the state and are joined today by a chairwoman and a councilwoman from two of our tribes. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers and then we will get into some Q&A. I'll ask some questions and then we'll open it up to Q&A to the audience. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Chairwoman Shellie Fiant is chairwoman of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. And is the council member for the Arlee district. She was raised in Arlee and graduated from Ronan High School in 1975. She obtained an associate's degree in liberal arts from Haskell University in 1978 and later returned to the University of Montana for a degree in business administration in 1989. She's an avid Grizz football fan and a gardener and beater. Her spare time is spent in the mountains with family, including her 4 sons, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great granddaughter. You have four generations, maybe more there. She's a supporter of the 5. Amazing. She's a supporter of the Food Sovereignty Initiative and the missing and murdered Indigenous people efforts here in Montana, which have been also a national beacon for those efforts across the country. Montana leads the way. And then I'm going to introduce Casey Ouellette, councilwoman of the Fort Peck tribes. Casey is an enrolled member of the Fort Peck, Assiniboine, and Sioux tribes. She was born and raised in Wolf Point, Montana. She obtained her degree in nursing from Montana State University, Northern in Havre, Montana. Ms. Ouellette has worked in the public health sector, including youth mental health, social services, and case management. She's currently employed part-time as a nurse with Northwest Montana Health Services at the Poplar Community Hospital, and is serving her 2nd term as a tribal executive board member for the Fort Peck tribes, where she is chairwoman of the Economic Development and chairwoman of Health and Human Services Committees. Busy. Casey also sits on the National Indian Health Board as the Billings Area Representative, is a member of the Benefice Native American Board, and is also appointed to Governor Gianforte's COVID-19 task force team. She's passionate about improving the health disparities for those that she represents. She's a proud mother of 2 children, a son Tate and a daughter Cashlyn. So thank you both. I know just from the work I've been doing across the state, how incredibly busy you both are. And like I said before, we're still in the middle of this pandemic. We're in the middle of a very intense legislative session. So taking an hour out of your busy schedules is very valuable. And we really appreciate having you with us. Chairwoman Fiant, you have lost, your family, we've researched and learned that your family had lost 3 members to the Spanish flu of 1918 within the span of 2 days. When COVID-19 began spreading across the US, you didn't want the same thing to happen again and have been working hard. You established a unified command team in conjunction with the neighboring Lake County, where tribal residents buy their food and have to go for business regularly. We've been in this it's going to be a year soon. It's been a long process. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned throughout this time and how that process has been in terms of working to collaborate with neighboring communities on trying to stop the spread and keep your communities safe?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say that my Indian name is Eagle Woman and my English name is Shellie Fiant. I'm Bitterett Salish from Arlee, and I currently serve as chairwoman of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and I'm currently completing my 2nd 4-year term on tribal council. And, being elected the chair in 2020 was a tremendous honor. And I was just reminded of the saying of be careful what you wish for, because I could have never imagined it would have come with the challenges that it did. Well, 2020 is past history, and I'm glad that we are all here to celebrate 2021, because not everyone is here. And my prayers go out to all those families who've lost loved ones during this pandemic. And thank you for asking me to share CSKT's story with you. Again, 2020 was just full of challenges, and And early on, the tribe declared a state of emergency to exist on the Flathead Reservation due to the pandemic. And I remember, reading the news, watching the news, and, kind of waiting for some kind of national leadership to emerge and give us direction about what to do. And that really didn't happen. And, I realized early on that, wow, we're a sovereign nation. We just need to do this. Whatever it's going to take, we need to do this. We need to take action. So we had a meeting at our Mission Valley Power conference room when we got together all of our department heads and program managers and CEOs of all of our corporations. And at that time, we were in the final four in that Montana, North and South Dakota, and I think it was Wyoming, didn't have any cases yet. And so I remember bringing that map up on the screen and telling everyone, we need all hands on deck. We need to figure this out to keep our people safe. And so I remember someone in the room coughed and everyone looked at him like, oh no, do you have COVID? But we, at that time we didn't know about masks. We were just kind of, everything was so new to us and there was no playbook to refer to. So early on, we met with Lake County and decided to form a unified command system with Lake County. And we had a false start in the beginning because a unified command team usually uses the incident command system. And so the people that are most versed in that system are firefighters. And so early on, we had someone from our Division of Fire serve as our incident commander. And we very quickly realized that that wasn't going to work. And so luckily, we had a local employee at Salish Kootenai College who'd actually served in a few pandemics. And so he kind of rose to the top and served as our operations manager at that time. So from there, we enacted a tribal resolution directing a shelter in place and social distancing. We pretty much just shut down our tribal operations, had people work from home, and if they were able to, and we just, put a hold on everything. It wasn't, we weren't so concerned about our meeting our grant objectives and everything that goes with that. It was, we were mostly concerned about the public health and safety of our people. So early on we implemented that shelter in place, and then we started seeing in mid-March a lot of snowbirds were coming home early. We're on the route between Yellowstone and Glacier National Park, and there's about 4 million people that pass through our reservation on an annual basis. And we started seeing, our local snowbirds coming home early. And then we started seeing all these out-of-state vehicles up in our tribal recreation lands. And we started thinking, what if we get COVID and where are we going to isolate? And we need to, protect our people and our lands. And so we realized early on that the two things that we did have control over, being that we're in Lake County, but we also are in 3 other counties as well, Missoula, Sanders, and Flathead, but the majority of the Flathead Indian Reservation is in Lake County. And so we realized that, what we do have control over is our tribal workforce and our tribal lands. So we actually enacted a tribal resolution limiting the use of tribal lands to tribal members only. And then a couple months later, we revised that to include non-member spouses or first generation descendant kids. And then getting closer to the 4th of July weekend, we modified it again and said local Flathead Reservation residents could use our tribal lands with a conservation permit because, you know, their kids were going stir crazy too, and they had nowhere else to go. So it wasn't a very popular decision in the beginning. People were worried that we were going to lose revenue from our conservation permits. And again, that wasn't our concern. Our concern was the public health and safety of our people. So those are just a few of the things that we did early on.
That's a great example of really staying ahead of the curve. And what we witnessed here in Montana was that some of the tribes went into lockdown earlier and for longer than the state. And that's something that happens we had a pretty big vacuum and void on the federal level in terms of effective coordinated response. We had definitely a much better and earlier response here in the state, but just want to acknowledge and thank you for that early action. I think it was critical. It was critical in stopping the spread. I don't know if you want to share what ended up happening, and maybe this is your background in business, but what ended up happening for the tribe when you shut down, even though people were worried about it.
We actually, our revenues increased because we made people honest in that they had to buy permits. We were continually getting questions like, you know, does my non-member spouse have to buy a permit? You know, does so-and-so have to buy a permit? Yes, they've always had to. Maybe they just got away with it before, but we actually set up land monitors at probably 20 of our most popular recreational sites like Mission Dam, McDonald Lake. You know, that's where we started seeing the cars from Florida and Texas and New York, you know, just coming to the reservation. And so, yeah, we did end up with I think it was a $200,000 increase over the previous year. So, and currently those individuals that served as land monitors, we've now employed a few of them in our tribal buildings because we have employee and building protocols. So when you come into a tribal building, you get your temperature taken. You know, they sign you in on a sheet. They ask you if you've, you know, been exposed to anyone with COVID, et cetera. So, you know, it has provided some seasonal employment for some of our folks as well.
That's great. So we have shifted to, we have, as in, working hard on vaccine rollout here in Montana. And CSKT is one of the tribes that chose to choose the state as opposed to IHS for vaccine rollout. Do you want to share any updates on how that's going, since it is pretty top of mind for people right now?
So we are still in the, excuse me, 1B phase, which is, so we've vaccinated all of our healthcare workers. So 1B is elders over 70 and anyone with a compromised system. So, you know, as you know, because of our health disparities, that includes a lot of people. So pretty much the issue right now is the supply. We've been getting about 200 vaccines, I would say, every week. And so scheduling individuals in, because as you may or may not know, once you open a vial, there's 10 vaccines in there and you have, you know, 6 hours to get those in people's arms. And so one of the things we did, because we lost one of our youngest fluent speakers, not to COVID, but he was younger than me. I have to say he was probably in his 50s. And we lost him about a month ago. And so we thought we should prioritize our fluent speakers and those people in our apprentice programs that are learning the language. So we added those individuals to the 1B priority as well. And so we're just working through those, having clinics every week and trying to get vaccines in people's arms. So my stepfather is getting his second vaccine today. So I'm really thankful for that.
Great, thank you for that update. And one of the things that we've been thinking about and talking about, you know, the disproportionate impact on Native communities has various factors, but one of them is underlying health conditions. And one of the things I know that you are interested in and focused on and do some work around is food sovereignty. And, you know, that bringing up potentially that not only the baseline access to healthy food, but also the reconnection to culture. And what that might do to support resilience and connection to mental health issues. So I'd love to hear a little bit. This is my final question, and then I know there are going to be a lot of questions from the audience, but would love to hear as we think about, certainly need to continue to stay safe, continue to just focus on vaccine rollout, but what does a post-COVID world look like? What are some things that you as a leader would want to help support and promote coming out of this?
Well, definitely working on our food security. I've been involved in this area for probably going on 6 years, and well, maybe longer than that if you consider um, my family's subsistence lifestyle. I'm lucky in that I come from a family of hunters and fishermen and gatherers. So I look back on 5 generations in my family. So my great great grandmother lived to be 112, and I'm pretty sure that she never had flour or sugar or alcohol. That she'd never consumed any of that. So she lived to be 112, and she died a month after I was born. My great grandma died in the 60s, and she was 82, and she still lived, you know, a pretty long life. My grandma, so she was part of that generation that was made to, you know, take rations and commodities and, you know, really, I guess, kind of interrupted the traditional food systems. And she lived to be 57. My dad died at 50, and I'm beyond that now. So the trajectory is going up. But I think a lot about how, you know, our traditional food system was interrupted, and the opportunity for us to go back to that and to really consume healthy foods that that are still out there for us. You know, those foods haven't gone anywhere, and it's up to us to reestablish that relationship with them, and to you know, get our bodies back on track. Because like I said, it's only been probably 3 generations in my family where we've had this interruption in our traditional diets. And I just look at the that, and also the inactivity. There's so many there was so much physical activity involved in, you know, gathering our food, hunting buffalo, you know, across the state. And so when you think about that now, and we can just go to the grocery store and, you know, grab our food, and there's not any physical activity really related to it, and or even cooking it for that matter. You know, there's a lot of fast food, and believe me, my kids had their share of McDonald's when I was a student. It was, you know, cheap and easy and fast. And so but when we think about all of those things in our DNA, like what our bodies need, I think I think it's really important that we try to get back to those indigenous foods.
Thank you for sharing that. And if you have any names of organizations or links that we can share, share in the chat, or share with us that we can share with this wider community. I think it'd be wonderful for people to learn about ways that they can help support communities across Montana as they rebuild from COVID. So we welcome that from both of you, and I'll ask that again at the end. But speaking of creative ways and thinking about, how to manage and come through COVID, there have been some wonderful masking efforts and creative efforts by young artists, musicians across the state. And I know there was a really beautiful set of mask up videos on CSKT. And I just wanted to, we have a little clip that we can share here from one of them. So if Chairwoman Fiant, if you're open to telling us a little bit more about it, we'll roll that for the group to see.
Sure. We did a couple of videos with Lake County Commissioner Chair Bill Barron and myself as chair of the tribe, and trying to show the unified command that we had. But we thought we're really missing out on the youth, and the youth, that's who we're doing this for, so we can continue, and that because they are our future leaders. So we had a committee that came up with this really cool idea to do a COVID challenge. And it started out as a TikTok challenge, but we just found this tremendous talent in our community. And we had 3 young individuals, Shadow Devereaux, Artie Mendoza, the third, and Vinnie Webster. And then we had 3 of my nieces, the Pete sisters, and they each did their own videos focusing on protecting the elders. And then the video that you're about to see is a collaboration that they did together. So with that, the campaign was called Protect Our Elders.
Been waiting for this moment. On the beat flow, wicked, yeah, it's potent. Me, shout out Artie, yo, we get the flow in. Pete girls on the chorus, now we going. Started waiting for the tribe, it's the motion. Going up with my tribe, explosion. It's young venomous, chief, I ain't joking. Money moves for the fam, that's a slogan. Did you wash your hands? Did you keep your distance? Sit back, all you gotta do is listen. When the elders talk, you know I listen. I feel the hand drums and my heart is hitting. It's a good medicine, it's uplifting. In this rap game, I'ma make a living. The young boy thoroughbred, yeah, I'm gifted.
Survive bloodlines, a whole genocide. Try to kill us with the smallpox, and blood quantum be still at large. Strong together, yeah, here we stand, with the blood of a chief running through my veins. Protect your people in the language too. I'll bring you back to the land with me. This for my people, I ain't trying to lose. Through thick and thin, no, I got you. So choose wisely every move you make. We red strong, we don't never break. Unite as one, make the earth quake. Kootenai strong all through my veins. Every step that I'm finna take. Kootenai strong all through my veins.
I woke up this morning with my family on my mind. I smudge my body, wash my hands and say no to COVID-19. Give me in cool momentum, my body, still my temple. I treat it with respect, so there's nothing that's accidental. Ay, still gotta love your people. Ay, all of us are made so equal. We doing it for the elders, sweet grass and the eagle feathers. We indigenous, resilient, strong, beautiful, brilliant. Artie for Shadow, Vin on a mission to make a million. Peace.
Strong together, yeah, here we stand, with the blood of a chief running through my veins.
Did you wash your hands? Did you keep a distance?
Indigenous, resilient, strong, beautiful, brilliant. Artie for Shadow, Vin on a mission to make a million. Peace.
Thank you so much for letting us share that. That's so beautiful, and is a great segue into the next question and topic I want to focus on with Councilwoman Ouellette. Councilwoman Ouellette, you have a background in health, public health, and also I know you're focused on ensuring that young people come through this. Certainly, I have teenagers, having young people at home. It's hard for adults as well. There's been a lot of job loss and major challenges with the stay-at-home order, especially as extended as it's been. But it has had a really hard impact on young people who really thrive being social and being with their friends. And so I know that Roosevelt County, there have been some pretty big, and Fort Peck, there have been some pretty big concerns about youth suicide. And there's evidence that suicide did increase because of the pandemic, related to support services being restricted. And I just want to share a quote here that at Fort Peck, the reservation's mental health center has had to scale down its youth events that teach leadership skills and traditional practices like horseback riding and archery, as well as workshops on topics coping with grief. The events usually draw 200 people or more and are intended to take teenagers' minds away from depression and allow them to have conversations about suicide, a taboo topic in many Native cultures. The few events that can go forward are limited now to just a handful of people. So I'd love if you're able to just speak to mental health or overall health issues and concerns that are facing young people, and how you have tried to help mitigate those, or what concerns you have as we continue to stay in the middle of this, ongoing limited movement related to COVID.
Well, thank you for having me on. That was a lovely video, Chairwoman Fiant, so thank you for sharing that. As you know, suicide, Montana is ranked #1 in suicide, and Fort Peck Indian Reservation is #1 in the state of Montana. So essentially we're leading the nation in that statistic, and that is one that we do not want to lead. So we've been trying to address our suicide pandemic before COVID even hit. So we did take a hit when this happened, and we went on the stay-at-home order, and all children were asked, to not have contact with their friends and just stay in their family unit. Since the schools opened up, we've seen we're on an uptick of COVID. So we're trying to figure out how to combat that and still keep our kids safe in the school. 29% of our COVID cases are 14 to 24-year-olds. And 62% of our deaths are for 55 and older. So what we were finding, and we were kind of scared of, is the younger kids taking it home to the elders, which has come true according to our data. Some of our programs have become creative on doing some events. We have Rami Growing Thunder, who works for our Fort Peck Language and Culture Department, and they are putting on a scavenger hunt for our youth and our community, just to get them out of the house, but keep socially distant. So I think they're going to use their cell phones when they go and find what they're asked to find. And it'll also, culture and social interaction people can get out of their house, go get some exercise, interact with one another, but in a socially distant and safe way. So those are, we're kind of rolling with the punches and trying to do what we can. I know they're doing like a lot of Zoom stuff like we're doing right now, conducting suicide telehealth. Telehealth is a big one that we've really relied on through here. We've had 2 mental health providers to service our whole reservation, which has 65 IHS eligible people. We've even had to share one with Fort Belknap when they were having their uptick of suicide. So 2 reservations, and sharing 2 mental health professionals, that's alarming in itself. So right now we're trying to get a handle on COVID. We just had a young man with a successful attempt on Saturday. Communities rallying around them. And so I don't really know what to say about that. It's really sad. It's just something that we're becoming accustomed to, and we want to break that cycle.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear about that loss, and applaud the efforts to continue mental health services and youth support throughout these times, because it certainly can be hard to reach them. So great to hear about that example. You joined us we have a series of TP Talks on Tuesday mornings through Western Native Voice, and you joined us for one recently. Thank you again for doing that. And one of the things that we talked about, so some of the questions that come through, why has there been a disproportionate impact on Native communities? We spoke a little bit earlier about underlying health conditions, but one of the other things that I've witnessed working on COVID in Montana is the resistance to mask wearing and stay-at-home orders in the counties surrounding our Native communities has had a major impact on fueling the spread. And so while Native communities may be staying at home and masking up, and when the communities surround them that are surrounding them where they may need to go to buy groceries and supplies are not following those orders, it has a major impact on their ability to slow the spread. So I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit more, just to share some insights with those who may not have been following this as to why some of the reasons that the rates have been higher in our community, in our Native communities here.
I think it all stems from leadership. We didn't have that national leadership that was saying that this is safe and we need to do this. So then it trickled down to a lot of people being misinformed and thinking that masks don't help. So you have school administrators, teachers, business owners that are, bucking the trend because they don't trust our government or our leadership. So they're not trying to wear them. My daughter, goes to school, and her first day back, there weren't administrators wearing masks. They told them they didn't have to wear them if they saw a hall monitor walk by to put them on. That's really disheartening to me. Our schools have been working great with us. We have had some hiccups. Right now, like I said, we're having an uptick because sports are going on. We've had to have whole basketball teams quarantined. Some school districts weren't so timely in shutting down their practices or their games. We're still trying to play after being notified by both IHS and the county. So that is just something that we're going to have to work on. We meet next week with our Unified Incident Command Center, which is a collaboration between county, reservation, school districts, cities. So we're going to try to address that problem when we get on that next week, next Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's one of the ongoing tensions with COVID response, as public health, workers and professionals. The last thing we want to do is use the economy as a public health tool. That's not something that we want. It should be the last ditch effort. And so, keeping people at home and keeping kids at home, sports, certainly, having to shut down sports, which is the lifeblood for so many young people in so many communities. There's been an ongoing, really serious tension there. But the trick is that the sooner we shut down and limit movement and get this under control, the sooner we can go back to regular life. But certainly, understanding and hearing a lot from communities about, mental health concerns because of the stay-at-home order and, job loss, et cetera. So we're hoping that if and when we have the next pandemic, we may have learned some lessons in this one and the importance of shutting down early and fully so that we can truly slow the spread. But yeah, that's something that we're hearing across a lot of counties in Montana, this issue around or challenge with having to stay home and not be able to go, play sports. So thanks for sharing that. One of the things that's been in the news in your area recently is the Keystone Pipeline. Chairman Floyd Azur welcomed the news that President Biden blocked the Keystone XL pipeline permit on his first day in office and said he had feared, and I know this is something that we had discussed before, the man camps or temporary housing for oil workers, which, there are major fears that would and has in other places fueled the spread of COVID-19, which would be especially devastating for tribal elders or members of the community. Do you have anything to say or weigh in on? I know it's definitely a major topic for Montana. Any of the, issues or dynamics in your community related to this decision?
I think our whole community just breathed a sigh of relief collectively. Where they were wanting to place it is at the water intake of, that our Fort Peck has the Assiniboine Sioux Rural Water Treatment System, and that's going to service 30,000 Montanans in Northeast Montana. It's not just our reservation. And so it's just a big sigh of relief for us. So we're really happy with President Biden's decision.
Yeah. And certainly on COVID can, controlling COVID also something that was a major concern. So congratulations on that. And I'd love to just hear a little bit more from you on this National Indian Health Board in Billings. Do you feel, how did that weigh in on your experience with COVID response? Did that support, that network support your COVID response and guidelines?
National Indian Health Board is, I got to give them kudos because they do a phenomenal job for us in Washington, D.C. on advocating for healthcare needs on Native Americans. They give us daily updates. We have more than ample time to respond, put our input in on how we would wish, the funds to come down, where our disparities are, what we can ask for. One thing we're having trouble with right now on Fort Peck is our vaccination. We chose to go with Indian Health Service, and we asked for 200 a week, and last week we didn't get any. This week we were told we were going to get 100 and we got 50. So our Roosevelt County Health is also administrating vaccines. You call and make an appointment, their waiting list is over 500 people long. So that's something that's alarming to me, because right now, out of everybody that's contracted COVID, we have a 4.5% death rate. That's unacceptable. We have 11,500 people that live within the boundaries of our reservation, and IHS has only vaccinated 440 first doses. I don't know how many second, but as of last week, it was 440. And I just think that's too little. And if I'm really thankful for President Biden's, he's trying to get 200 million or 100 million vaccines done in 100 days. So we're just waiting until, they said next week we should be getting a rush of extra vaccines. So.
Great. It's good to hear that you have that support. I'm going to turn it over to, thank you both for answering our questions. And I'm going to ask one last question of both of you, and then we'll turn it over to audience Q&A. But I'd love to have both of you share some examples of courageous leadership on the front lines in your community. Can you tell us just a couple of anecdotes of where you've really seen people go above and beyond and demonstrate the leadership against all odds in your communities? Just one or two examples from each of you would be great. Chairwoman Fiant, do you want to start?
Sure. Wow, there's so many. Our law enforcement didn't miss a beat. Our healthcare workers, we have a transit system, and they continue to provide, a bus service for individuals to go to medical appointments in Missoula and, outlying areas. There's just so many categories of people. And one that I'm especially proud of is our teachers. We have 2 tribal schools. One is in Kusum, which is our K-8 Salish language immersion school. And they made a decision, their board made a decision early on to teach virtually. And they've done that since last March. They're in the process of remodeling their school right now so that when they do come back, they can have, social distancing. And then our BIE school, Twiga River School, they've also been teaching virtually. And both of these staffs and faculties worked all summer to learn Google Classroom and, all that kind of thing. And so I'm really proud of them. In addition, our Twiga River School is the only reservation school that canceled their basketball season. And that was pretty major because, on the reservation, basketball is life. And so, I'm just really proud of them. But that's just a few of the heroes that come to mind for me.
Yeah, that's a difficult, shutting down basketball season, I know, was very heart-wrenching for schools. That's a tough one. Thank you for sharing.
Well, mine are along the same sentiments of hers, without law enforcement, teachers bending over backwards, learning how to juggle in-school students, virtual learning students, our healthcare workers, the other 11 elected officials that sit with me, we brainstormed ways we could help battle this COVID. We got food boxes to those in quarantine. We set up, did a MOU with a hotel for those that didn't have a place to go to quarantine so they could go quarantine. We had people working around the clock delivering these to people, checking in on them. just people stepping up, asking, where can you put me? So I just got to give thanks to all of our employees and even our members for hanging in with us, because we've never dealt with this before, and they've sure been rolling with the punches. And one day we say we're going to do it this way, and then next day we are like, well, that don't work, we're going to do it this way. And they've, been really gracious and just seeing what fits so we can face this head on and hopefully put everything behind us.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, one thing that we've been saying with COVID and in any kind of public health emergency is that suddenly everyone is a public health leader, right? From a parent to a teacher to a shop owner, everyone who joins the effort to protect the wider community really is a healthcare hero. So thank you for helping recognize all those who've jumped in and stepped up to support your response. I'm going to get to some Q&A. We've got a bunch of questions from the audience, so I'm sorry if we miss some. We'll try to answer some of them as well. And so let me just, those that we don't get to, we'll try to see if we can respond to you directly. But here's a message or a question from Michael Claire Salzer to Chairwoman Eaglewoman. With 200 doses per week, what is the time frame for reaching full coverage vaccination for your elderly and vulnerable populations? How does this compare with other areas of Montana? And maybe you can both answer that. And is there consideration for vaccinating all these individuals with 1 dose versus 2, given some of the recent considerations put forth by the Biden administration? So sort of a two-part question, but how are you feeling about it? And yeah, Councilwoman Ouellette did mention that, you're feeling that the limit is you're not getting enough fast enough. So you partially responded already, but go ahead.
So one thing that we talked about for our elders is, IHS goes by the federal guidelines of rollout. The state, like Chairwoman Fiant said, they're on the 1B, and Native Americans are on that list. So we were in talks with our transit to try to even take them to where there's a CVS or a Walgreens and get them our elders and our essentials, do it that way in a safe distance manner. Of course, we're not going to pack people like sardines on a bus and take them somewhere where they can all, potentially be exposed, but that's what we're trying to do. So hopefully we're seeing how much and how fast these vaccines are going to come into us. If they do start coming in more steadily and more readily, we won't be doing that, but we have discussed doing that to meet so far.
So it's really difficult to make those projections based on the supply. I do know that we have a user population of, I believe, 11,000. And so, we're just following the priorities. And, I think there's a lot of people that may not use the tribal health system. So maybe tribal health isn't aware that they have, these immune problems. And so it's just a really difficult thing to determine. We're just going slow and steady, as we get those vaccines. So, our healthcare workers have not had a break. So.
Thank you for sharing that. And there have been a few questions in here about prioritizing vulnerable populations. Here in Montana, we have included Black, Indigenous, and people of color in phase 1B. As far as I know at this point, we may be the only state to have done that. So in addition to tribes getting vaccinations through IHS, which is a federal program, at the state level, we are also focusing on prioritizing those vulnerable communities. So I'm going to answer that one there because I'm on the state task force for the vaccine, but feel free to ask additional questions. There's a question here for both of you related to the CARES Act funding. If you could both speak to how you felt that addressed the needs of your tribes and where they might have done anything differently, but just generally responding to federal response to the CARES Act.
Want me to go first? So we received $24.1 million in federal CARES Act money. A majority of that, we did 3 different payouts for COVID-19 relief assistance payments. We also put some towards energy assistance. So we paid out $2 million for that, which was $200 a month for anybody that applied to help them with their heating assistance. We did the food boxes, we did PPE, we also helped our small business owners of enrolled on and off the reservation with some small business loan payments to help them and their business stay afloat, because we know there's not that many tribal farmers. You know, that's kind of a dying breed, but we extended it to everybody. So we were happy we were able to do that. That's just some of the things that Fort Peck did.
So CSKT received a total of $44 million, I think in 2 different installments. And we also did an economic stimulus, 2 of them, to our members. Additionally, we built 4 broadband towers to assist with virtual learning and telehealth and telework. And we had a big food sovereignty initiative. Again, you know, like Fort Peck, we gave out food boxes and really provided, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables to a lot of people. And that program is actually still going on. We also provided small business grants. And then one of our big initiatives was homelessness, because when people are homeless during a pandemic, it's a situation. We vetted so many different options, and I'm really proud to say that we started a supportive housing project, which we're taking applications for right now. And so that supportive housing will provide the wraparound services. And then we also were able to buy some modulars for those people that are currently in Salish Kootenai Housing Authority houses, but are ready to purchase. And so they'll move them up into home ownership and open up some of those rentals for those in need. So those were just a few of the initiatives that we did. And then we did the youth campaign, PPE. We did provide money to like in Kusum, our Salish language school, to remodel their kitchen area, because they had a really small, it was like a home kitchen. It wasn't a commercial kitchen.
Great. So sounds like some immediate needs, some long-term systemic needs. Through our COVID relief fund that we ran with Western Native Voice, we also were doing what we could to help with some longer-term support or sustainable support, like hot water heaters, you know, things that people, and like you're talking about housing, supporting infrastructure improvements so that, you know, that helps during the pandemic and beyond. And on that note, I'm happy to see a number of questions and suggestions here, or a request for suggestions for where people can give. So if you want to share a little bit about how those who might want to support Native communities through this time and in the rebuilding from COVID, if you have any suggestions of how people can get involved and support communities across Montana. Chairwoman Fiant, do you have some specific organizations or efforts you might direct people to if they wanted to contribute to communities here?
One of the local organizations is the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center, and they have been able to carry on that food box distribution through collaboration with the Western Montana Growers Co-op, which is a co-op made up of close to 40 local producers. So that might be an organization, because that need hasn't gone away.
Thank you.
I was just going to say our food banks here, you know, we give them tribal dollars, but the Montana Food Network also delivers weekly to them. So I would say, you know, if they want to do the Montana Food Network, they're pretty generous with us. We have had some donations come directly to the tribe. Any donation we get, we give to our community service program, which is like replacing hot water heaters, furnaces, helping elders fix their home. It's really a needed program, and they are one of our backbones of our tribes too, in helping our elders.
Great. I'll ask a couple more questions. One from Jamie Stevenson about mutual aid efforts. So it sounds like those food banks and some of those other efforts are going to support communities around mutual aid, and we can send more information on that as well. And then from Larry Leonard, is this situation regarding the frequency of COVID essentially the same for all the reservations? And there's an overlap with a comparison between urban Indians and Native Americans on reservations. So I don't know if you have any insights, maybe Councilwoman Ouellette, on what I've seen in working across the state is that it has spiked in different regions at different times, but that the rates have been similar, and that some have been harder hit than others depending on the surrounding counties. But it's also a timing difference in timing moving across the state. Crow and Northern Cheyenne were really hard hit in August, and then it started to really hit in Blackfeet, Fort Peck. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on how you've been tracking statewide and how you might compare.
That's one of the things I think we're lacking, and Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders is our epidemiology center for all tribes across the Montana and Wyoming. They're actually meeting in February this month, and I plan on attending that meeting and asking them to step up their data tracking system, because I know we're all working independently with our own epidemiology. John Hopkins University is who's working with Fort Peck. And I think right now they could be getting a hold of the reservations and collecting data from them and compiling that for us. So that's something I'm kind of going to hold their feet to the fire for.
Chairwoman Fiant, do you want to weigh in on that question?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute. Yeah, I think, Casey's point is well taken. We do need people to step up and I guess provide that data for us. Our people are so busy, boots on the ground right now, focusing on vaccines, that it's really difficult to, internally have that capacity to focus on some of those other aspects of it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think that we have a number of more questions. I'm going to put my email in the chat box for those who want to, if you want to send your questions on to me, I can work to get answers back to you. But want to thank you both again so much for making the time, for sharing your insights, for your continued leadership. And please, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us when you need support. And we will continue, we'll follow up with those who attended today with any follow-up links and materials. But I am going to pass it back to Dina, our co-host, our Mansfield Center host. And thank you all for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all so much. It is such an honor to be able to host this dialogue at the Mansfield Center. The University of Montana acknowledges that we're in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kootenai people. And today we honor the path that they've always shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. They have certainly shown us a model in supporting community during this time of pandemic. I know that the chairwoman put the link for the masking campaign in the chat box, the Who's at Risk campaign. So I encourage you all to check in on that and see the amazing materials that they've presented to keep their community safe. So we hope that you'll join us next week. Our next dialogue is on rights and responsibilities in a time of COVID, a discussion with people from business, from government, from the health community, on how we can all work together to keep our state safe. So thank you all again, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.